Hello and welcome. This is Jimmy as a bot. We are coming back to BDO with a bang, and today I'm going to release my official enhancing guide of 2023. I've been planning on making this guide for almost 2 full years. I had put it off for a long time, but I really don't think this type of guide has been created yet. There's many good guides out there, but I wanted to give my perspective as someone who's basically enhanced over 1 trillion silver in the game. Just to give a quick background of why I thought I was capable of doing this. I have enhanced pretty much all of my gear with the exception of my tongue red ring. I spent almost 8 months from 2020 into 2021 enhancing my first pen black star. I was actually 0 for 61 on this, with around a 5 to 6.2% chance per attempt. So we were in the bottom 1 percentile of people who hit it, but I persisted through it. You can actually see my enhancing videos on this channel. We ended up hitting both of our pen black stars not too much later, and most recently I ended up hitting both pen distortion earrings within an hour of each other, around the time that I had taken a break from the game. So the gear itself, it doesn't really mean that I know anything about enhancing, but as someone who's played the game since about 2017, I've enhanced through different metas of BDO's enhancing system. So I think I'm qualified at least to present this information in a way that would make sense for today, but also going forward into whatever new metas might come into the future, because I believe that having the right info, the right process is timeless. And regardless of whether you're watching this in 2023 or if maybe you're pulling it up a year from now, hopefully it'll bring you value all the same. So without further ado, let's dive into the agenda here. So I'm going to start with kind of a beginner introduction to how enhancing works, how gear works. I think a lot of people who are coming to the game are overwhelmed by BDO's complex economy. It's different than most MMOs out there. If you haven't played Korean MMOs, you might not be used to the randomness of progression, and I kind of want to dig into that a little bit. I'll go through the history of enhancing. I've seen drastically different systems. I've seen people come and go. I've seen people lose everything. I've lost everything. I've built it up back again. And I'll just kind of give you kind of the perspective of where we've been so I can tell you my ideas of where I think the system might go. I'll go through my process for how I enhance and really what it looks like when you try to figure out, well, what fail stack do I use? I want to try and solve that question, or at least give you more information to provide context to making the correct decisions as you're enhancing. I'll do a little bit of live enhancing. We'll see how it goes, but I'm going to try and record a kind of a brief goal and see if we can actually accomplish it. And then I'll talk about for-profit enhancing at least a little bit, and then we'll go into the whole system of Cron stones, some more advanced strategies, and that should kind of cover what we're going to go over in this video. I will put timestamps in the description, so if you are familiar with enhancing, I'd maybe suggest skipping the beginner section, for example, or if you just want to see my market sniping stuff, I think there's some people who might just be interested in that alone. So without further ado, let's jump right in here. So in Black Desert Online, there are different items that people enhance with, right? So if you are looking into getting into enhancing, you probably are wondering, well, what items are involved here, right? So the main item in enhancing is actually called a Blackstone. These Blackstones are probably one of the most important items in the entire enhancing economy, and they're probably one of the most fascinating economically because they've roughly maintained the exact same price since the game started some 6 years ago. Now, I say the same price. They've fluctuated, around 100 to 200,000 silver, but in the grand scheme of things, that's actually incredibly steady, and it kind of makes you wonder, are these things being balanced behind the scenes? But as someone who started in 2017, getting a Blackstone in your grind was actually a pretty big deal because you're only making 15 million silver per hour, whereas a Blackstone is worth 200,000. So if you were to get 100 of them, that's already 20 million silver. So some of these like events that gave you additional blackstones could actually be quite lucrative. So the blackstone itself is here. This is a blackstone armor. So essentially for armor, you use one type of stone, and for weapons, you use a different type of stone. Now, this gets a little bit more complicated because when the game launched, these were the main two, right? There were only black stones that were the blue ones and then the purple ones, right? But it actually got more complicated over time. I'll get into the history later. But the TLDR is that as the game has progressed, there's been more types of stones. They mostly follow the same rules, but there's some exceptions, some complexities, and even some new types of, reagents that are used to create different stones altogether. So in order to understand the enhancing market, there's not just the stones that you use to upgrade, right? You also have these, I guess they're called memory fragments. These are basically the repair material. So every time that you succeed in enhancement, it consumes the blackstone. So if I was to take a base, one of these reblath gloves. So reblath is just a type of gear that people use to fail stack because one, you can buy it really cheaply, and two, you can repair it very cheaply. So if I buy a glove here, we will now have a base glove, and this glove can be enhanced from levels +0, which is like a fresh item, up to +6. There's always a guaranteed success rate. You see this 100% rate. So if I click this, I can click it 6 times. Perhaps this is wrong. Anyway, from 0 to +5, it's 100% chance, and then it looks like we're at 73, right? So this is probably going to succeed, but then you can see the success rate drops quite a bit. Now, enhancing, we noticed that we actually consumed 1 stone per click, right? But if we were to fail a click, we still consume this, but now you'll notice that the durability has dropped. So every time we fail an enhancement on armor or weapons, it will always lose durability, with only a few exceptions, but not worth mentioning here. So if you want to enhance this item and you want to look at the value and the cost, you have to think about the different constructions that you have, right? So if I was to fail this item 20 times, it would have no more durability. And when an item is out of durability, sometimes when it gets to a 20 durability, it'll stop you from enhancing it further, and you actually have to repair the durability bar at the bottom. You see that where it says durability 95 out of 95. That means it's fully repaired, but its max is 95, where it could have a max of 100. So in order to repair this, there's basically 2 main ways. You can either use the variant of the item itself. So in this case, we have a reblath glove, or we can use a memory fragment, which is a unique item that has been in the game since the very beginning. And these memory fragments essentially will multiply at a given rate on the rarity. As you can read, for a white grade item, it will repair 10. And then when you get to like boss gear, it only repairs 1 for either yellow or orange. So essentially, what you have to do is you have to look at how expensive is it to repair your item and what's the cheapest way that you want to repair it. Or in some cases, maybe the item isn't available, but you want to, repair it with memory fragments. Even if it's less expensive, more expensive, it still might be worth it. For example, if you have there's some helmets in games that might be hard to get, so you could use memory fragments kind of as a backup. But the process here is very simple. You talk to the blacksmith. You can say recover max durability. You have to find the item that you want to repair the durability for. And somewhere in here is our +6, right? Now you can see I have options. I can do a memory fragment or a reblath glove. In this case, you just want to hit continuous or just recover once. It doesn't matter since we only have 1. It's going to basically apply this recovery here. I believe each glove should repair 10 durability. And that'll basically fix the max durability. It won't actually repair the item, worth knowing. So in this case, we should see 95 out of 100 now, which matches the max durability of the item. So other items that are important to understand, we have more advanced weapons stones now and armor stones. These are basically for items that have passed the +15 mark. So when the game started, there wasn't quite as much depth to the enhancing system. you didn't have basically these advanced stone types. So if we're to kind of take a look at these by when they came out, you would have the black stone kind of being the first one. And then what happened was we ended up getting some more complicated stones here. There are many to organize here. So let's go like this. So we have all the armor variants. So essentially you had armor stones, and then you have these hards, which you can combine to make concentrated magical stones. These will basically let you enhance beyond plus 15 if you're going to pen, for example. And then you have the weapon stones. And then do we have any? I don't think. I guess I have 14 of them here. But basically, these flawless magical stones are used for enhancing Black Star gear, which is essentially a tier above the boss gear. Boss just meaning items like Zarka, like basically all the bosses. Boss gear was also not in the game early on. So like Zarka is like a world boss. A lot of these things came out towards the end of, I believe, 2016, a little bit before my time. But essentially, all you need to know is that depending on what you are trying to enhance, there are different material types. The bigger stones are more expensive. There's also another one called Chaotic. This is basically the next tier after Flawless. So after Black Star, then they released the Slumbering Origin, which includes Fallen God Labresca and now the Dawn's Glove. And shortly, I think we'll get the Ator's Shoes, which will be the last remaining piece of the Slumbering Origin set. Which presumably will use the same Flawless Chaotic Blackstone. This grouping kind of is increasing by cost. This last stone is very expensive because it includes 10 Caphras, 1 hard, 1 sharp, and then this item resource called a Massive Pure Magic, which are a little bit harder to value economically. But these are basically the core of your enhancing setup. There is a Pearl item called Artisan Memories. They give these out for free all the time. These basically are multipliers, so you can use them with a gear piece when you're repairing the max durability, or you can use them with a memory fragment, and it'll give you 5 times more than normal. So it may be advantageous to use this when you're trying to save money on a particular enhancement, but they go very quickly. So in general, you want to make sure you're using them properly to save the most amount of money possible. So one thing to mention here is that there are 2 different kind of paths with enhancing. So we kind of talked about like armor upgrades. I think it's pretty clear you use these black stones of various types to upgrade your weapons and armor. But accessories is kind of like the second category. So rather than having just a black stone to enhance your item with, you can actually smash accessories together, and then they will create like a product. So how it works is you have to take your accessory that you want to upgrade, and then you have to take a base variant of that same accessory. So an easy example would be if we wanted to just check out, like, let's see if we can grab an ogre ring. I don't know why that didn't load. Let's try here. We're just going to grab 2 of these. This isn't optimal by any means, but if we were to grab both of these ogre rings, these are both base rings. But technically they're earrings. It's technically it's a necklace. So the TLDR of this is that when you're enhancing an accessory, it requires a base accessory of the same type. So the easiest way to do this would be, let's go ahead and go here. We can use this selection of material. This is the newest way to kind of set up your fail stacks. But if we just grab a stack here, we can see that we have a 77% chance. There's different hard caps for these attempts. I'll get into this later, though, I promise. And essentially, when we enhance, we're going to lose this base accessory regardless. And if it succeeds at upgrades, if it fails, we lose both. So in this case, we lose both, right? It's 1 out of 4 times it happens. Not a big deal. Unfortunate, but it happens, right? So if that succeeded, we'd have a pry ranking, or basically the second rank of an accessory. It's kind of confusing because armor and weapons go from 0 to 15, and then pry is technically 16 up to pen, which is 20. Whereas for accessories, they start at base, and then level 1 is essentially, like if you think of 0 as their base, then level 1 would be pry, and then level 5 would be pen. So it's really just like accessories kind of skip that whole baseline thing. So a little confusing there. But accessories are different because, yeah, they use another base material and you lose them, right? They don't just downgrade. But Cron stones, this is kind of like your enhancement protection or your risk mitigator. They're kind of expensive, so it's not really mathematically sound to say that they're always a risk mitigator, because sometimes it's more expensive to use them to protect the enhancement than it would be to just click it naturally. So how Cron stones work is that when you click them on gear that you're trying to upgrade, they will give you protection over the level that you're currently enhancing from. So a good example would be if we have this Beg's glove here. It's at pry, and one rule about armor and weapons, for the most part, is that when they're at pry, if they fail the enhancement, they actually won't downgrade back to plus 15. It's kind of like a new baseline as you're enhancing. But once it gets to duo, then it's suspect to fail. So what happens here is we have this duo reblath glove, right? So we can click this, and if it succeeds, it goes one level up to try. But if it fails, it'll actually go down to pry. So we can click here. We notice it uses the concentrated magical blackstone. These are about 2 million each. We have a 26% chance of success. So really, this is a base glove. We don't actually want this to succeed. It's not a big deal if it does. But you'll see as we enhance this, it's going to change either to pry or try. Right, so it does fail. Our fail stack goes up a considerable amount. And we can then see that it downgraded. But if we were to take this same glove and just go ahead and enhance it up to duo here, we're just going to click a couple times. What I did is not very smart, but I'll explain some of this stuff later. Now, if we want to, this is really bad, and anyone who knows what they're doing here is going to cringe when they see this. Will it let me use Cron stones? This is the real question. It doesn't look like it's going to. That's funny. We'll have to go ahead and do this on a different stack here. So we're going to go ahead and just pop one of these real quickly. But if we are to go and click this to duo, now instead of risking going back down to pry, what we can do is we can use these Cron stones and we can actually protect this. So now with the Cron stones enabled, you'll see that even if we fail, we lose durability still, and we lose this number of Cron stones, so 38. And remember, these are about 2 million silver each, so this is approximately 76 mil plus 2 mil, meaning we're losing about 78 mil just on materials, and then we're also going to lose the 10 durability if it fails. So think of it in terms of the guaranteed loss plus the potential for loss in terms of what you're looking at for risk. So we can now enhance this, and it's either going to be try or duo, right? Because it's not going to fail, but it could go up. So sometimes, look, see, there we go. Enhancement failed, but item is protected. So because we consume those 38 Cron stones, we keep the item level. So Cron stones are really important, especially for accessories, because unlike armor and weapons, when you have accessories, they, as you saw earlier with the ogre ring, they get deleted. So in this case, what we want to do is only use Cron stones to protect items that have really high value. I'll address a little bit of this later, but essentially when you use Cron stones, instead of deleting the base item that you're enhancing, it'll actually protect it. So if you are using, for example, a Deboreka necklace, they're very hard to acquire because the base accessory isn't available currently on NA. So you have to grind them out, and it's kind of an arduous process. So what people do is they use Cron stones to protect it, and then if it fails, it only downgrades one level. So Cron stones are a very interesting market variable. They can really make the enhancing game quite interesting. So fail stacking is kind of the next thing I want to discuss here, because it does get a bit complicated, but the short gist of it is that in Black Desert, you have this enhancement chance that basically starts at 0 and it goes up, right? If you have a base enhancement chance, you'll notice mine's +2. This is because of just an adventure log. I'll talk about that later as well. But basically your enhancement will start at 0, and for any given number, you can see you have a percentage chance of success. So for this Reblath glove, that's level 8, if anyone has a level 8 and they have this +2 enhancement chance, they're going to have the same chance of success. So these percentages They actually didn't used to be visible. This was actually a change that happened in 2018. And people kind of inferred where they were. People traded spreadsheets, and it was like, oh, kind of in this range, you want to click these types of things. So try to imagine that the 14% wasn't there, and think about what you would enhance, right? So the key to this is that you generally want to use higher stacks for higher enhancement attempts. This is a baseline rule that will mostly always be true. There's a little bit of a curve around plus 15, specifically plus 14 to plus 15, because it's a very difficult enhancement. And then Pride of Duo, for example, is very easy and low risk. So you may see slightly higher for like the 13, 14 range than Pride of Duo. But then by the time you get to like Try and Tet, again, it's going to be like taking off. You want to use really high stacks. So you can see if we fail this, this is going to increase our fail stack by 1. So we currently have this plus 2. Now if we know we have a plus 3 somewhere in here. I guess I already failed on it. So we'll just go ahead and skip here and click. Now you can see we gained about 1% on our success rate. So every time we fail, this number goes up. But the thing is, you can use these fail stacks to enhance anything. So even though I'm not using that glove anymore, I could technically now enhance this glove with a higher percentage chance, right? So when you enhance, you want to try and look at the fail stack as a resource, right? Because you can apply that fail stack to different types of gear and use those fail stacks effectively to essentially build your success rate with items that are cheap, and then apply that success rate to items that are expensive. This is like a magical trade-off that doesn't always balance the books. Really, some people think that it's very simple, or that it can be, like done at any time. Like there's actually a lot more variables than people think, and I'm gonna get into those later in this video. So that's kind of how the fail stacking process works. These stacks do go very high. For perspective, most of the endgame gear can be enhanced in the 100 to 300 fail stack range. And there's basically one tier of items that people are using stacks for like 300 to 700. But in North America, or any server to my knowledge, no one's ever built a stack over 1,000. Even building a 400 stack didn't really happen in like the first year of the game. I actually had a buddy who hit one of the first Pentungreds on NA, and this was like 4 years ago. But he had built a 400 stack failing Pendandelion before Blackstar was even in the game. And it just shows the wide variance of results that can happen, and the fact that that fail stack is actually worth so much, but there was nothing better to spend it on at the time. So it makes sense that it was used for that purpose. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about how good a fail stack is and what it can be used for. And the more breadth of knowledge and experience you have with the game, the more you're going to understand how to actually apply those fail stacks to get the most value out of your past failures, as well as preparing for different pathways forward for your future success. As for gear progression, just to kind of wrap up our beginner section here, I just wanted to mention kind of the economic setup and what gear enhancing really looks like. So most of the gear in the game in 2023, you can actually just buy it. So if you're looking at, for example, Pen Red Nose, which is the highest level 20 level of Red Nose, you can see there's actually 4 of them just sitting on the market. They're only about 11, 12 billion silver. Sometimes I see them down in like the 9, the 10. And what this means is that you can go out and grind silver, which is essentially guaranteed, at a couple 100, 300 million, even 400 million an hour now. And you could grind this in maybe 20 hours of playing the game. And this wasn't an option, actually, until the central market rework. But the general consensus is that people shouldn't enhance unless if they really feel like they know what they're doing. And so part of my goal with this video is to equip you with the knowledge to make the right decision as for whether you should enhance or whether you should buy something. Because most of the time, as you can see by all of my red slides on our PowerPoint, we expect people to fail. Most people lose money enhancing. Most people don't get how to enhance. But at the same time, there's also a ton of resources that are given to us for free to enhance. So surely there's a line that you can draw to say, if I'm giving all this free stuff, how do I use it? And that's part of the massive process of enhancing and like this mindset of success that I'm trying to communicate. That should wrap up our beginner section. We're going to go into the history section now for enhancing in BDO. So I mentioned this briefly in the beginner section, but in order to increase your gear beyond plus 15, it uses a different type of stone. There are vastly different success rates that you see at different tiers, so it is important to understand the different levels of where difficulty happens. So you saw like the levels of like 1 to 10 are basically extremely high success rate, and then you have 10 to 14 are basically increasing difficulty. So 11 is harder than 10, 12 is harder than 11, up to enhancing from 14 to 15 being the hardest. Then you have an enhancement to pry, which is basically super easy, but this was only because it was built as a bridge between the previous gear cap, because nobody could enhance past level 15. For example, like a Grunnel helmet at level 15 was like endgame gear. And then all of a sudden they released the ability to enhance beyond that. So a lot of people already had the 15. So what they did is they set like a new baseline. This was essentially power creep, right? Because no matter how many billions of silver, no one really had billions then, but even hundreds of millions of silver that you put into your gear, min-maxing your build, the many hours that you put in making 1,000,000 silver an hour, the new baseline to pry was hit, and all of a sudden you had a bunch of people easily progressing and perhaps passing a lot of their peers. But to be fair, this happened in a somewhat quick time frame, so I don't think it was very controversial. And then what happened is in 2017, people started building their gear up to try, right? Because once you start enhancing for duo, you have this like guaranteed chance of not losing pry, right? So once you succeed duo, the first risk is try. And making like full try boss was actually like siege gear in the beginning of 2017. But even by the end of 2017, it was completely moved up to full tet, meaning you needed to have all of your gear enhanced one further level. And that meant that you had to succeed multiple times in a row on every gear piece. So that meant that, you know, once you fail your try click, you have to try for duo again, and then you try again for try. And you would see that like there's these ratios between, well, you know, duo to try was something like, 25, 30%. But then going from try to tet, you saw this number drop off back down to like, 8 to 12%. And you could see why, 1 out of 12 multiplied against 1 out of 3 meant that you had to click most of these items like 30 to 40 times in order to enhance them. So the difficulty is definitely increased because a lot of the standards have increased. And of course, as the community gets stronger and there's all this PvP in the game and harder grind spots, the bar has been lifted quite a bit. The actual enhancing process for increasing your gear is tricky because when people started using this gear called Reblath, right, in the old days, rather than being able to just create a fail stack, fail stacking was much more difficult because you had to actually manually tap stones, which people don't really do anymore. But just to give a quick background, people would click these stones and then you would succeed a difficult enhancement on cheap gear, and then you'd have to either reacquire this difficult gear. So in the case of like 2017, 14 to 15 was like the difficult enhancement for Reblast. So everyone would basically build 14s. You could even buy them on the market. Some people just buy them to fail stack with. And then you want to try and click for 15 and try and get that number up to as high as it could get, right? So at the time, it would mean maybe you'd push it to plus 20 or plus 30. There's clips of like some dudes pushing all the way to plus 50 on a plus 14 Reblast, like complete meme status, because at the time a 50 fail stack was worth a lot of silver, right? And then when it would succeed, which you couldn't really avoid, right? Even if it was like a 96% chance of failing, that 4% would still screw you over. So what you do is you would have a negative karma alt, which is just a low level character that, you would like kill horses or something to get negative karma. And then you kept your account under level 10 so it could instantly respawn. And you would equip like one set of each piece of gear, and then you would downgrade them by basically suiciding to guards. And then this would have a chance, just a chance, at downgrading one or two pieces of gear, maybe a few, I think. But the idea was that if you had multiple gear slots at once, for example, like a reblath helmet, uh, shoes, gloves, and armor, then you could actually downgrade four at once and it would be faster. So that kind of got replaced by the church NPC cleansing, which was more or less just I think you paid a flat amount of like 100k per piece, and you could instantly downgrade it to plus 14, which was a huge upgrade over the negative karma alt. So this is kind of just how the meta had evolved, right? And eventually we got the ability to do what we can do now, which is just consume blackstones and get fail stacks. It's a very nice enhancement system. It's been in the game for maybe only a year and a half now. It's still quite recent. There is this thing called Nader's Band, the Rule of P permanent enhancing chance. That one's a little bit older, but these two things essentially made it so that you could move fail stacks faster between characters. We no longer have to extract stacks, so we don't spend money. I'm pretty sure you couldn't even move a stack over 100 in the old days without spending money, or maybe it was completely impossible. But moving stacks is now like very convenient. There's not many cooldowns. It's very, very easy and quick and cheap. And the other big thing I guess to mention is that the central marketplace has drastically changed how enhancing works, mainly because of how it not only makes available resources. So in the past, it was hard to get memory fragments. It was difficult to stock up on a lot of these types of items because they just weren't in the market. And the reciprocating effect of that is that because people weren't enhancing a lot, or if they were, it was like a massive investment, they actually weren't selling a lot of gear on the market because a lot of boss gear wasn't really available. Like people didn't have like multiple pieces. We didn't get anything for free until like I want to say like a New Year's event in like 2018 maybe. That's kind of when like gear started getting more available. People could actually buy gear on the market. I remember like the first time that like boss gear sat on the marketplace. Like these were crazy changes to the game, and now all this stuff is immensely available. And essentially like it's a casino and every table has spots at it, and you're able to just walk in, sit down, and put in your chips, right? There have been some more like difficulty ramps with enhancing, and I would say that is what Blackstar and Slumbering Origin effectively do. They've offered more meta gear that's available. It's like a further push, but at the same time, the difficulty is much higher, especially with the last tier of Slumbering Origin, which has a ludicrously low success rate, in like the tenths or even hundredths of a percent success rate. Amassing at like several billion silver per attempt. And only like a handful, like under a dozen, have even been hit worldwide across all servers. So very rare items, but you can see that the way enhancing has been progressing, the top end gear is just getting more and more expensive. So enhancing really is becoming, it's very relevant and it's very important to understand. It perhaps is not as necessary as before for a lot of gear, but there are certain gear upgrades where it's absolutely necessary. And at the least, having this knowledge is it's profitable because of all the free materials that you get. It helps to know how to use them effectively. So the actual process of enhancing, just to go through this, my perspective might be different from someone else's perspective. A lot of people have actually done the math on every single thing. They can plug in the variables. They have spreadsheets. I do this in a very simple way, and I try and look at it on like a per attempt basis. To break this down, I always start with defining your goal, meaning what are you trying to accomplish? Like when you start an enhancing session, are you just there to like make quick money, or are you actually trying to make something that might be profitable? Are you like guessing on the math, or are you just like totally just going to go for it regardless? Like these are important things to just be honest with yourself with, because like it's like someone going to a casino and saying, well, yeah, I'm just going to go in and put it on black and I'm going to make some money. It's like, well, half of that might be a plan, but realistically you have to be honest and say like, I'm going to go in and put it on black and I'm probably going to lose, right? Like these are parts of the reality that you want to make sure you've identified beforehand. So building the appropriate stacks, this is an important step. Sometimes people already have the stacks. Sometimes they have to build them separately. This kind of goes hand in hand with getting the materials in order to execute this plan that you're about to to go with, right? Like once you send these things, they don't come back. People invest literally months of time or even years into these enhancing sessions, and the money doesn't come back, or the money does come back. But you want to make sure that you know what you're getting into before you get into it, and maybe sometimes set boundaries for yourself. Understand where your failure point is. I think everyone should have those failure points defined. This kind of gets into the realm of like gambler's fallacy, and yeah, just not wanting to risk more than you're willing to lose. The next thing here is flexibility and adjusting for results, right? We don't know what's going to happen. This is like a key component of enhancing. And there's only two outcomes for every single click that you do, and that is success or failure. You can add more context to a situation by saying, well, should I, use Cron stones or not? But again, it comes down to, did the Cron stone attempt work? Did it fail? So you have a plan, then you have your actual results, your actual value. Like you can go into something with like the understanding that you're going to get positive value, but you still may lose, right? There's always the chance that you're going to fail unless if you have 100% success. So yeah, this comment I make here, everything is a success. It may sound kind of weird, but this is my mentality with enhancing, because I go in with my goals predefined, and I always tell myself, whether this fails or succeeds, I'm able to move forward immediately after. So I'm always thinking about, well, when this fails, I'm going to do this, and when it succeeds, I'm going to do this. So irrespective of what actually happens, I know which branch of the tree we're going to go down, and then I have an idea of like where those realms want to collide with each other, right? Like if, for example, I'm enhancing, at an 80 stack, and I have a tri-black star that I'm trying to get to Tet. If I click that maybe a couple times and I get into like that 90 range, okay, well now maybe we're going to want to move into, like a pen reblath, or maybe it's Tet black star, like depending on the market conditions. All these things are variables, but eventually you cross this threshold of, the previous enhancement no longer being viable for the fail stack that you've earned. And then the post-mortem, it's important, kind of once you've defined that failure point, eventually you will either hit success or failure, but you do want to kind of analyze, okay, what materials do I have left? How good did I do against where I thought I would do and what the math more or less said should happen? If you have a 5% success rate and, you do 100 of them and you succeed 0, like obviously you had a negative result or whatever, but it's important to consider, well, yeah, actually it was slightly worse than, the math said it should be. But how much worse, right? Like, I like documenting these things so I can at least see, what I did and what actually happened, and at least giving myself some sanity with the results, because often they just won't really agree. AV never equals EV. It's kind of like the professional gambler rule. So you always want to make sure you go into these things with a plan, and with, just with your own set of personal rules that will help you move forward. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. We're going to try and enhance something. So I decided what we're going to do is we're going to try and build a Tet reblath. And I'm going to just give you like the real quick lowdown on my own enhancing setup, because it's very cheap. You could mimic this with a very small amount of silver. And the goal for me is I want to increase a fail stack. Let's see if we have one in particular that we want to use. So in this case, I happen to have a 150 stack, and we're going to go ahead and get this 150 stack out, and we're going to put it on the bar here. Our goal is to get a Tet reblath, and then we're going to go for a pen reblath to increase this fail stack. It should increase it by 6 because we're failing pen, which is the highest tier. You've basically, I believe you get is it 2 for failing duo, 3 for failing tri? 3 for failing duo, 4 for failing tri, 5 for failing Tet, and 6 for failing pen. So we're going to try and get this to 158 by just failing a pen reblath. Now, getting these reblath gloves set up, I like having one type first of all, because as you're enhancing, you want to be able to repair them quickly. And if you only have one type, that means I can just buy like 10 million of these gloves. I'm just right clicking. There is this buy multiple option, and I'm trying to understand. Does it not let me buy multiple of these anymore? Anyway, we'll just right click spam. I've always done this. We can basically go repair max durability. Now you'll see me just spam here. We're just going through all of our gloves. We're not clicking artisans. We're using very cheap materials. You know, it's like 20,000 per glove. And you can see we just go through. We don't click the memory fragments, and we just repair all of these gloves, right? So what we're doing is basically allowing us to go through. And now we can buy more gloves until all of the gear in our inventory is maxed out, right? I probably need a lot more than this, but this should be fine for now. So I can give you some general outlines here, because the way that this will work is that you'll want a lot of concentrated magical blackstones to increase. I can always search edmag here. We'll just grab these 62. So we have like 200 should be plenty. How it works is you want to use low fail stacks to get your gloves to duo. Then you want to use medium fail stacks to get them to try. And you want to use slightly higher stacks to get them to tet, right? The idea with Reblath, of course, is that you generally would do it a little bit lower than you would for an equivalent tier of something that mattered, like boss gear. People don't enhance like base boss gear as much as they used to, because so much of it can be attained for free, and there's different enhancement progression paths. But what I will demonstrate here, we can do two options to create fail stacks, right? We can essentially access stacks that I've already, acquired. I'm just coming back to the game, so I have a ton of these already prepared and available. But I'm going to, for the sake of the video, instead I'm going to use the manual Blackstone system, and we will try and make these directly. If we have a base Reblath at Pry, we're going to go ahead and just slap this onto, perfect, onto the plus. I'm just like making sure we didn't use our 150 stack on a base. Now we have an open fail stack. You can't actually apply an enhancement chance when you've already worked up a stack. So we had a +3 from that one clicker we did earlier. So now what we need to do is, ideally when you're going from Pry to Duo, you want to use like a 15 to 20 stack. When you're going from Duo to Try, this is where you want to get in that realm of like 25 up to 35 and maybe even upwards of 40. 40s pushing it. By like mid 40s, you're already getting into the realm of like maybe you should be, going for something a little better, like perhaps a Try boss attempt, right? So what we'll do is we'll use Blackstones, and we're going to go through here. I'm just going to show you what I would do. We can either go 20 or 15. Really, because Blackstones are so cheap right now, if they were at 200,000, I maybe would go with the 15, but I think it's really no problem to go with the 20 here. It does get applied to my permanent +2. We can go ahead and tap this like twice, okay? And now we can go ahead and use a larger one here, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to basically, we call this like a try roulette. So you can see I have a bunch of Duo Reblath. So essentially we want to try and fail 3 times, right? So that one didn't work. We're just going to do the same thing, click our Blackstones, apply the 25, and we're going to do another try roulette. So we're not going to use our try, right? We're going to go ahead and keep doing duos. There's 1 fail, 2 fails. Okay, not the third. That's okay. So as we're accruing these successes, these are basically going to be used for later tet roulettes, which is what our goal was, right? Is to acquire a tet Reblath and then enhance to pen and hopefully fail. Now, we're going to keep doing these try roulettes until we essentially either get enough tries or we get enough base prize that we can then enhance back to Duo. So I'm again applying this 27 stack. We just want to get 3 failures. This won't work probably 2/3 of the time. There we go. So right off the bat, we managed to fail 3 times. Now, this would kind of be where we could start clicking for try boss. The realm for try boss really is tricky because with memory frags being kind of capped out at like 3 million, repairing is expensive, right? So you generally want to err on the higher side for boss gear. So for something like attempting try boss, up to like 55 is fine. This would be pretty low if we were to go for it on this low fail stack. So we technically could go for another try, but for the sake of accuracy, we're going to use our 1 try boss here. We're just going to click here. So essentially what we did is we just increased our fail stack more. Now we have 1 2. Looks like we only have the 2 try reblath to use here, so we're just going to go ahead and hit both of these. Now if this succeeded, that's not the end of the world because we're actually trying to get one, right? But we want to try and keep these fail stacks. So I'm using this Nader's band here, which basically allows me to store fail stacks. So we're just going to log that one in. You can get this for free, by the way. Even having one slot is immensely helpful. So I highly recommend you just talk to the Black Spirit. There's a Nader's band quest. I believe it takes you to, yeah, somewhere in Medea. I forget exactly. But yeah, so what we're going to do now is, again, we are out of the tries. So what we do is we go back to 25. And we just start doing, again, these three hit taps, right? So 1, 2, and 3. Now we got another 39, so we can just put this one on the band. You technically could keep going, right? If you don't have as much space on the band, what you could do is just keep attempting try. And you can also extract these stacks using silver. But we'll just go ahead and click here. Let's see if we can get another try. It's funny because sometimes you will fail this all the way up. So now that we've got one here, let's try and do one more. So we're gonna go. We have just so many duos. I'm trying to get these out of the way real quick. All right, now we can go back to our larger fail stack, this 53. We're gonna go 2 more attempts here. You can skip or you can go slow. It doesn't actually matter. It depends on if you're feeling the enhancement. Oh, damn. All right, so we've got our fail stack up a bit. We'll probably push this a little bit further, but ideally we wouldn't even want to go to like 70. So we can go back here. Now remember, since we failed those 10 attempts, we get more duos, right? Because they go back down. So rather than using the 39, we can go all the way back down to a new 25. We'll do a couple more little triples here. So 1, 2, 3. And we're getting to that point where we could start working on our prize again. All right, so I think we're at the point, yeah, where we want to, essentially we have so many of these middling stacks. Now what we could do is we could start working on pushing those stacks up a bit, right? So we take something like a plus 15. Now we're going to start building duos. So I'm just going to do this really quickly, but we're going to try and essentially keep rinse repeating this plus 15 make duos process. Now right here we failed 3 times. Now we're going to go to duos, right? Now instead of losing a fail stack or having to put one on the band, we're being kind of efficient with our fail stacking, right? So every time we get to 26, we try and pump out all of our duos. Got one more here. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and grab our 63. We're going to do one more tet click. All right. And now we're going to go back down to our lowest one here and use our duo. All right. And this is always a fun problem because you have to kind of figure out, well, what do I want to do with all these fail stacks, right? And there's a couple of ways we can resolve this problem. It looks like we have a 37. So this is a good time, I guess, to show the extraction process. So if you want to extract a fail stack, you actually have to buy an item called the Blacksmith's Secret Book. So you can see this costs 1 million silver. It's not as good as using the band. An alternative to this is actually you can use an alt to basically move the stack onto a character. For example, if I log into this character, I can basically log that enhancement chance on the character. Usually I would do this with the higher stacks since you're using them less frequently. I'm mostly just doing this for demonstrative purposes. I would try and enhance more in a balanced way. But when we're extracting the fail stack, we just grab the item out of... So I make sure we actually bought it. Yeah, sorry, I just have to click the tab here. So here we go. So you can see under the extraction tab, you select Blacksmith's Secret Book, and then you just extract the fail stack. And now that fail stack creates a new item, plus 36. It goes straight into my inventory. And you can see it's right here. So this just gives us more room to enhance on the character without having to kind of lose our track here. So we're just going to keep going here. We're going back to plus 15. So we can do a little resource check. We've only used about 30 stones. It's nothing too bad. We can click one more time. Because again, we want to be stack efficient, so we're just going to try and build maybe half of our resources into duo. If we got to like 30, I guess we could just click our boss piece. It's really not that bad. I'm just going to kind of cycle these. Most of the time it should succeed at 20 or 23, but when it doesn't, we can either click our boss gear, like for example here, and then we could go here. Sometimes I just don't want to go, and that's okay. Do we have another duo we could slap? Yeah, sometimes the stacks can kind of do whatever they want, right? We're just going to tap once here. Okay. See, in this case, we actually don't have any more, so we could either extract again. This is actually a perfect spot to just buy another one of these. For simplicity's sake, I'm totally fine just kind of swapping this out, right? So we go extract, book, click. So one quick tab here, one quick tip is when I go from the shop out, I always push escape twice and then I hit comma, right? It's really something you can do quickly with muscle memory because you're going to be clicking a lot of these repairs. You just escape twice and then comma, right? You can quickly transition out. Now we should have an open fail stack, as you can see. We're going to basically bring in plus 15s again. And hopefully we'll build a few more of them before we run out here. It's funny because I never know exactly how these things are going to go, right? We're just trying to be ready for a result, and then we're reacting to it in real time, dealing with whatever problem we have. We're going to do one more boss click here. Now we're going to go for the duos again. Same as before, right? There's a try. Okay, good. We're going to go back to 15. Yeah, like technically we could pull out the I'm amazed by how many fails we're getting at the lower end. It's kind of a little bit rare, but now we're gonna go back to our larger stack, which I believe is up to 68 now. We're still gonna fail. We can go for our largest try stack, which is this guy. Whoa, don't click that force enhance button. Okay, we'll extract once more here. Now, again, going back to our plus 15, hopefully we can zoom through this. It's remarkable sometimes, right? Let's grab the boss piece. Nice, okay, we'll go up here. Again, we're trying to clear stacks, right? So that actually worked pretty well. We got a decent fail stack out of it. That's essentially what our goal is, right? There's nothing really stopping us from using like a base stack and just slapping it like 37 times. But sometimes the failures are just in the books, you know? Like look at this. In this case, we have all these fail stacks, but we're actually not able to get progress. So, just thinking of the best play here. I think what we'll do is we'll grab a couple more of these. We could take out some of the bigger stacks if we wanted to. I'm just going to extract both of our try stacks. Woof, not that one. Then we're going to grab the other one. Yeah, like this isn't necessary exactly, but it can often save you time, right? So don't feel like you can't do it just because it costs a little bit of silver. Go back to plus 15. But yeah, the beauty of this is that sometimes you'll run into these situations where you either don't have the resources, you don't have the space. It's so often that like you get some extreme results, and honestly, the more that you enhance, the more you'll actually see these crazy results, right? So we'll go try roulette. That's perfect. That's actually what we want. By the way, we're prepping for hopefully a successful hit of try here so that we can get our tet. And then we should be able to go for our click. Do we only get the 1 duo? Yeah, okay, here we go. Let's go for, what are we up to, 73? Yeah, once this gets to 75, I'll use the lower stack that we have. It's really not a great click. So if this goes, we're good. If it's not, more than the works. Okay, great. There we go. So that's our essentially, like that was essentially our goal. We'd know that like we shouldn't be clicking for Tet Reblast beyond like, yeah, 70, 75. It's probably around the realm. Now, this is the riskiest click of all, but it's really not that bad because we're just fail stacking. So the goal, of course, was to fail this. If it succeeds, it's not the end of the world. We can extract it for like an 80 stack, but this basically sums our results. Good. Yeah, I've hit enough pen reblasts that nothing is immune from happening, right? Luckily, we succeeded. We built our fail stack. And yeah, that's the quick download of the enhancing process. Now, one thing I did want to show is this concept of market sniping. This is kind of like an advanced strategy. The way that I do it, it's really nothing crazy, but like having the process down is really important, because if you're like in the middle of a grind, whatever it might be, you want to be able to like quickly react to a situation. So out of everything here, we'll show you the hotkey. We're going to go in and like figure out how to basically make listed items appear first. And then you have your alerts and pre-orders. So you want to make sure you set up your market alerts. I'll show that as well. And then, yeah, the market cycles, this is where it gets a little more interesting. We'll come back to this in just a second. So looks like we have a piece that's showing up right now, which is actually amazing. Looks like it's already gone. But I can show you exactly what it did here. So most people are like, wow, how did you do that so quickly? So step one is that you saw that I got an alert up here, right? So you want to go to escape settings, go to general settings, go to alerts, and then at the bottom, you should see, or is it show hide? Sorry. Oops. It's been a hot minute. It is alerts. I apologize. So settings, general settings, alerts, and then you'll see this section for central market. So by enabling this, you'll see items that get listed that are significant per their definition, and this will allow you to see when Pearl items go up on the market. So that's step one, right, is the actual market alert. It's very important because when you're buying Pearl items, you want to be able to see when they're getting listed. So in case it wasn't obvious, what happens is these items are bought by people who are generally swiping a credit card of some sort to get items through the Pearl shop. So if you were to buy some box, there's always usually like a 20% off box. For example, it looks like this Wizard Corvicanus outfit is for sale. Now when you buy this, it gives you an item. Some people just like selling it for the silver so they can list it on the market and it'll go in. Corvicanus. You can see that this wizard item has 24 pre-orders, 4,200 have sold. Now what happens is if this item is not pre-ordered, rather than filling a pre-order, it'll actually show up, and that's what is called a market registration. So you only see this notification come up here when this list is full, right? Sorry, when it's been cleared. So for example, if you register a Wizard Corvicanus, I won't get a notification for it. But if there are no more pre-orders, or perhaps if someone was to sell 30 of them, then you would see that notification. And then the next step of this is that you want to be able to bring up the marketplace. Like you see the notification, you just pull it up instantly. You go Pearl items, you go to male outfits, and then you make sure that it's sorted by this item quantity, right? This is like probably the most important thing. And then you should be able to see it if it was for sale here. So the hotkey, the easiest way to find this is go to the new menu and then just search hotkey. And you want to go to this quick hotkey option. And you want to make sure that you have the setting for central market set here. So I believe the way to do this is that you just have this M selected here. So you can see mine's already set, but all you're doing is basically pushing Alt M, and then it will bring up the market directly. So the other way would have been if you had a maid to pull it up like this, right? It's a lot more clicks. It's a lot of mouse movement. But what this allows you to do is just instantly pull up the market, and within a couple of clicks, you can be buying the item. So that's the hotkey. That should hopefully help you snag up a few extra outfits. The idea with this, of course, is that if you're to buy outfits from the blacksmith, they cost 2 million silver each, right? But if you buy, for example, one of these items, you can see these gloves that just got listed a few minutes ago, they sell for 68 million, and their cronstones on extraction is 54. So you're actually only paying 1.2 million silver per cronstone, right? So this is effectively 0.77777 better, or like, yeah, you can just say on 0.122, it's I mean, it's significant, right? 0.7 divided by 0.2. Yeah, it's like 30%, right? It's much more of an improvement to buy an outfit and then extract the cronstone. So it saves you a lot of money when you're trying to acquire cronstones. Like that's the primary goal, right? Is building up this cronstone stack so you can make these huge enhancements. Now, the warehouse key is important. Like if you don't have these sorted on ascended, so I always go buy, then pearl item, and then I try and click, whichever section it is. So like you see that notification, you have to like think of the class. Is it male or female? Is it an outfit box, or is it a piece, or is it a classic box, right? Like there's these different situations, and you do want to make sure you know which one it is, because the click time is important. Like if you're pre-ordering these items, you're racing anyone else who's also trying to, if you're not pre-ordering, but if you're trying to snipe them off the market, meaning the ones that were in excess or the pieces that perhaps weren't listed yet. Now there's two ways to do this. One is to see them as a notification, right? And the other is to try and wait for it. So this is a crazy strategy, but what some people do is every time that you click the setting, since it's sorted by descending item quantity, that's what this little arrow means. That means that a 1 will show up at the top, right? So essentially what happens is before the item shows up, you'll actually see the server update the number to a 1 of any outfit that gets listed. So in general, if you're really desperate for cronstones and you want to pay like the absolute minimum, what you can do is like try and be ahead of the market. Now, like I'm doing this in a live setting, and there's a really good chance that nobody's going to list anything, but every now and then you'll see one of these numbers jump to a 1, and then all I have to do is just mouse over it, click purchase, hit enter, right, to complete the verification. So sometimes if you're really trying to focus on one of these outfit pieces, which have been registering quite a bit lately, you can just click 2. Or if you're trying to, maybe it's after a reset, you just click the ones that are for the boxes. Now this is important because every week there's kind of 2 critical weekly events that happen that are huge for the whole pro registration process. And those are, number 1, the Tuesday maintenance reset or Wednesday maintenance reset. Now, every time maintenance happens, there's usually a new cycle of Pearl outfit sales. And these outfit sales mean that some people are taking advantage of a new deal. This means that at the end of a previous maintenance, if there was a really good deal, there might be extra people registering right at the end. Or if the good deal just started, there may be people who are taking advantage of the deal and then about to list right after maintenance. The other key thing to think of with that one is that after maintenance, there are generally less people online. So if someone does register, you might have a higher chance of winning those snipes, or if you're going to go for pre-orders, those make sense as well. Pre-order strategy is a little bit different. So if you're trying to go for a pre-order, you generally want to look up, there's different resources for this, but like garmoth.com will tell you all the listed, like a summary of all the items, the Pearl items that have been registered to the market. These are helpful for looking at, well, how many pre-orders does something have if it gets listed quite a bit. Like the goal, of course, is to convert your silver into these cronstones, right? And the outfits that are getting listed, you're trying to figure out where you should be spending your pre-order, because you only, again, get to make one pre-order, right, on whichever item it is. So in general, there's only a couple ways to look at it. Like you either want to get the one that's being listed the most, or you get the one that has very few pre-orders that's kind of being listed. And usually that ratio can be looked at, but sometimes like there's ways to move items. For example, if you have a friend and there's a certain sale going on, let's see what the current sales are. So right now it looks like, do we have some of these times? So this one, it looks like it's a specific type of outfit. I'm not sure if there's something better here. This one looks all right. Yeah, so the premium box is interesting because it basically gives you a whole class list. Those are probably all pre-ordered, but sometimes it'll let you like choose an outfit from a different set of outfits. And those events are really good because if you have a friend who's like swiping, you can actually pre-order like an outfit that doesn't have, oh, here we go. So this is a great example. There may be a piece here that we can acquire. We got one. We'll click it again to refresh. We go for the second. We got two. So this is we just, against everyone in North America, there were 4 listed, 5. Yeah, there were 5 listed, but we got 2 of them, which is really good. So you can see these 2 pieces we just got, the Blood Countess helmet. We basically spent 160 mil, which we know we're getting that 1.2 mil per approximately. Like different items are usually a little bit different. I think the helmet's actually pretty good. So yeah, we end up getting 54 on 68, which, yeah, it's amazing. So as I was saying, what we're looking at doing with pre-orders and trying to basically plan, where do you want to spend the silver? It can be a little bit challenging, but you want to try and follow these patterns of, when things are getting registered to the market. The second event I was mentioning earlier, which you want to be aware of, is actually the weekly reset, right? Because every week there is an event, which is the Pearl item spend reset. Now, this means that people who took advantage of the sale that are whales that hit some of the caps, they'll actually buy more outfits and register them. So you want to be really conscientious of like when that server reset happens. I believe it's like 7 o'clock Central Time in my time zone, but you want to make sure you know when it happens. It's whenever Garmoth spawns, right? It's that same Sunday time, and might be like Monday morning if you're like in New Zealand or something. But yeah, knowing when those times happen and then being available, trying to take advantage of that can make a big difference, right? General side notes I have here before closing out the video. There are like events that can happen that give Cron stones or even specific outfits. These can make people list certain outfits. So you want to be aware of like, okay, which outfits are going on right now, right? Which outfits might be best to pre-order because of this variable that's in the patch notes, that it's on the other server that we know we're going to get something similar. You just want to have this idea of like, what's a good long-term investment. And one interesting fact about this game is that, at least so far, there's always been a lot of inflation, but the Cronstone investment vehicle is really the best way you can do it. And you don't want to extract the actual outfit, right? So by holding these outfit pieces, if they're ever to change the market, and what happens is like every year or two, they end up increasing the amount of Cronstones that you can extract from a piece of gear, and they also increase the amount of silver that they can sell for. And if you don't extract the gear, you actually will be able to hold these pieces. So you only want to extract the Cronstones that you need. You actually want to hold them, and then whenever the time is right and you need the Cronstones for enhancing, you actually pull them out. A lot of this stuff I feel like doesn't get talked about as much, especially like the strategy of having like a friend sell. For example, this Yuri Premium, I'm pretty sure I put this up a good bit ago, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, I'm the only pre-order, right? So if someone can acquire this outfit and sell it, I will get it 100% of the time. If they had 10 of them, what we could do, just to explain how this mechanic works, because people do this, streamers do this, endgame players do it. Think of them as like advantage players, they're gaming the system, whatever. But if you wanted to sell me 50 outfits, we would just do this example here, right? You acquire 50 of this Yuri Premium, and one by one, I put a pre-order for one, because that's as many as I can do. You sell me just one, I confirm, I put up another pre-order, I tell you to list it, you list it. We keep going one at a time. It'll never make a market notice for anyone else to see. And This way, you're able to, like, if your friend's really needing the cron stones and you don't really care about the money or whatever, you're doing your friend a favor. A lot of the free-to-play players really appreciate, when they can more or less isolate like a cron stone deal. So especially if you're doing some of those end game enhances, Pen Black Stars, your Tet Labresca, whatever it is, you can blow through like literally hundreds of thousands of crons, meaning literally hundreds of outfits. So these are the types of things that you want to kind of keep track of long term. And again, like holding outfits is one of the most stable, best investments. It's far better than holding silver. So like you see this 12 billion, you might be like, oh, this is a good big number, but I think no, like I need to convert this ASAP because like this is money that's just sitting here, and in general, money in a game like this is not a good thing to hold on to. Like if I was to quit the game and come back in 5 years, I can basically guarantee that money's like worth half of what it should be worth if I'd put it into the proper items or even just into cron stones. I think that should wrap up our video here. I know this got a little bit long, but I'd like to say some closing thoughts here. There are a couple endgame enhancement concepts that I want to just really quickly address. So one thing I did not go into was this idea of for-profit enhancing, and really what does that mean? What does it look like? And how does the math actually work? And the short answer I'll give you is that most of it's a myth, right? People like to think if I gamble 100 times and I win 3 times, those 3 nights I'm a winner, But real people who try and look at like this whole for-profit thing, they keep track of their attempts. They keep track of their cost investments, and they have an idea of where they are long term, right? It's very important, or else you're just going to keep spending money and you're always going to be happy with it. And I try and draw the line somewhere between those 2 points, right? I don't always. First of all, I don't ever tell someone that I'm a for-profit enhancer. I try and say that I make good decisions and I do these things in like a repeatable way that I think will work. And my thing is that I just like keep track of my failures because I like believing that if I do 100, I'm, technically, while I'm not more likely to get it, I know that I've put in a lot of work into it, right? And I know that a lot of materials come for free, so I'm always using anything I can get to, enhance whatever I might be trying to improve for my grind, silver per hour. So my 2 cents with enhancing for profit is it's pretty easy to summarize. Out of everyone who's ever tried it, very few are successful. There's times where people have gone very hard into it, and they might be very successful for months on end. But what's important to understand is that you're never free from the risk. And as someone who's done lots of different types of professional gambling, just because you have a 99% success rate doesn't make you invincible. And you could make billions and even maybe trillions of silver. But that 1%, it's not like it's just a 1% chance of hurting your day or whatever. Like you have a 1% chance of losing everything, right? So sometimes you have to really try and quantify, is this risk acceptable for me? And especially if that's all you do, is this how you want to play the game, right? Most of the successful enhancers that I know, they do other things to make money. For example, they grind, or they do siege or node war, and then they use the free materials, right? I think it's important that you kind of draw the line between, okay, these are things that I bought and I spent money on just to have a chance at enhancing, or these are things that are given to me and I'm just trying to kind of get value out of them. For example, I recently made a very large move where I sold a Tri-Labresca on my main. And I did this for a few different reasons, but the main one was that I was getting a free Pen Griffin that wasn't tradable from the Magnus questline. And I knew that I could buy a flame very easily. I had some Caphras from, my Beg's gloves that I had extracted because I only needed C10. And I knew I could get about 70 billion. And my main thought process was that by getting the Pen Griffin, I'm essentially realizing 10 billion silver of value. I'm getting the 60 billion after tax from selling the Tri. And I had 300 artisan memories that were sitting in my inventory from having quit for about a year. And it was pretty easy for me to think, well, if I want to get some silver, I have a good chance of at least getting both of my gear to duo, right? The Beg's gloves, I didn't really have any money at the time before doing this. and I knew that I had, you know, several billion silver worth of the materials that would go into making these pieces of gear happen, right? So it's not like it's a guarantee by any means, but I ended up getting my gear back, and I had like 15 million silver left over, right? It was very lucky. And in a grand scheme of things, like, you never really know if the long-term decision will work out. But if you go into it trying to say, like, you know, I have 20 billion of enhancing mats, I'd like to convert that into 20 billion silver so that I can maybe invest it into Cron stones or whatever it might be. Because right now, for me, my next enhancement that I'm working on is Tet Deboreka necklace. I actually bought Tet Debo, but I've downgraded from pen 3 times now out of 5 attempts, which is pretty unlucky. And every time I do this, you know, I'm spending thousands of Cron stones. So I know pen attempts are so expensive that in general, I don't think it's something that I'm going to be able to afford unless if I'm being pretty smart about how I'm acquiring all the Cron stones. So anyway, without ranting too much, I think that's going to be it. I do want to thank everyone. If you actually stayed here this whole time, I appreciate you, and I hope you have an excellent day or evening. And without further ado, I think that wraps up the stream. If you liked what you saw, I'm not sponsored. I try and make content that's like agnostic, you know. I'm not like even an official PA creator at this point, but I'd like to believe that I make content just strictly for the end user, you know, the gamer who's trying to make some improvements. There's probably always going to be people who don't like what I do because it might share too many secrets or expose their good strategies. But I don't know. I'm more in the line of, like, I believe in like hardcore open information, like just expose it, let it be out in the open. And yeah, like things like those the shortcuts, like, it's amazing that people try and gatekeep some of these really little things, but they can make a big difference. And hopefully this will help you. I know like some regions are better than others for stacking up resources, but if this was decent, yeah, I mean, I always do appreciate if you want to share the video or the channel with your friends or whatever. But yeah, hope you have an excellent day, and cheers, don't give up, and happy grinding.